our finest hour. Well, I don't know about that, but I think the show will be okay. Next on our Sinclair.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our Sinclair. It's our American look at the beloved Speccy from the UK.
Yes.
Good buddy, good pal, Amigo Aaron, joined as always by the BRENT.
Yes.
How we doing this week, the BRENT?
I'm doing okay. I had a lot of issues getting over an illness, getting over some pains, but it sounds like I passed those pains right along to you.
Well,
so
yeah.
It worked out.
You know, the here in the States, the weather's changed.
Yes.
And we have tipped over to what I like to call the season of garbage, where it gets colder and colder until it's ultimately cold and it's pitch black all the time.
Well, I don't mind the pitch black all the time, but
I hate it.
I was... It wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't a boomerang of weather.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, welcome to Indian summer. Nope, you're frozen. Oh, we're warming back up.
Yeah, I was telling Brent before the show, as I sat Wednesday morning, as I limped to my car, because apparently I now have a bad knee, I limped out there to scrape my car because it was ice caked on it, and realized that I had to use a cassette lid to scrape the whole car because I didn't have a scraper anymore. And then I had to drive. And the second I pulled out of our housing development, I was in traffic until I got to work.
Yep.
It was like an hour of traffic in the cold. And by the way, the Jeep's heater doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So yeah, it was not a happy week. But hey, listen, no one tunes in to hear us talk about the weather. Well, maybe they do want to hear us talk about the weather. I guess if you're into that, there you go.
Anything else, Aaron, that we need to mention to get off the plate before we experience our finest hour?
We do have information on Boat Fest. It was announced this week. I guess we can sort of mention it. We'll just say it's coming. We'll give full details next week when we have everything lined out. But Boat Fest 2024, it's has been announced, so that'll be fun.
Taze Valley Computer Club had another wonderful episode, issue, meeting of the minds, if you will.
Yeah.
This past weekend.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
All right, I won't either, but...
I'd say a bunch of doofuses eating and playing video games for 3 hours.
Yes, and that was magnificent.
It was. I had a good time, and I will give a special shout-out to our buddy, John Marshall, our friend, a supporter, good guy, who has put together a grade A trackball, which I got to use and play a lot of fun games with that, so that was a lot of fun.
How did that compare to our own personal trackball?
It's way better.
Oh.
See, his is custom built, and if it's part of a case, we have a trackball that sits on our control panel. You see, that's the difference. So, yeah, it was way better.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, I want to mention in 2 short weeks, Aaron, not even 2 short weeks, we will be doing Thanksgiving.
It's actually 3 short weeks, isn't it? Isn't it like
yes. Yeah.
Man, you're dumb.
End of November, Thanksgiving, we'll be doing that marathon for folks to relax after their Thanksgiving meal the day after.
Yeah. I'm going to relax that whole day. Just play a bunch of games.
Yeah.
That'll be cool.
So
maybe have a little drink.
So we hope everyone joins us for that.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait for that this year. But this week, oh, man. You know, let me tell you a funny story about the game this week. Their finest hour. So... when this came up, when the selection committee came up with this bad boy, I thought to myself, hey, their finest hour. I'm all over that. I got the manuals for that sucker. I've played it for years. So I spent a couple hours boning up on the DOS version earlier in the week. You know, got in there, got in the cockpit, played some rounds of it. I thought, man, I'm still pretty good at this. I'll be ready to go for the show. Now it's time to make the transition over to the Speccy version. And Bo had asked me, he's like, what do you think? How's this look on the Speccy? I'm like, well, I don't know. There's not any video of this in existence on YouTube. I looked all over, and I thought, that's kind of strange. And I also thought, man, how did they get this to work on the Speccy? And so you can imagine my surprise when I turned on the Speccy. This was a completely different game.
Yeah.
And I mean totally different. And, of course, since there's no video at all or tutorial or anything, We were literally, I've never felt more on an island in my whole life with a game.
Well, Aaron, let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Our finest hour. Now, this, Aaron, was a game I did not expect at all.
Well, yeah, no one expects it. It just shows up. So, again, this one, Brent, I will say, requires a little bit of build here. So, their finest hour, it also was re-released as Su Mayor Hora, which I think is like Spanish for their finest hour. It came out in 1985 and was published by Century Communications Limited. And I'm going to get into them in a minute because their only other title really that you hear much about, well, one of the two was Math Tutors for the Speccy, which if you're a math fan, there you go. This ran on the 48K and was authored by a couple fellows, John K. Wilson, who was a guy responsible for a few titles. I don't know if I've played any of these. Jeff Cape Strongman. I want to play that. I can say that right now. Megapocalypse, Red Scorpion, Armageddon Man. It's funny, I looked over his titles as I was writing them down. I was like, I'd rather play every one of these. The Planets, Tower of Evil, and Worm Attack. Sounds good. His partner in crime in this was Nicholas Palmer, which I'll get into him in a minute as well. This was a 10-pounder back in the day and supported the Kempston keyboard, the whole 9 yards. Now, I want to get into this game. We're going to just go straight from the beginning here because there's a lot to build into here. Century Communications, the people that published this, were not very well known as game publishers for the obvious reason that they had a math tutorial.
Yeah, yes, that's it.
They were better known for their, apparently, and people over there might know this better than us, but they were known for computer handbooks.
Yes, so manuals and the like.
Computer-like books to, do various things on a computer. So the game was when they put this game together, they wanted to get something in the line of an authentic, historic, war game.
Yeah, they wanted it to be educationally-ish.
And so they got John Wilson. We mentioned his credentials, but they also got Nicholas Palmer. So who is Nicholas Palmer? He's just not a video game guy. He's the author of a book called The Comprehensive Guide to Board Wargaming.
Yes.
So this guy, they went and got a board game guy, a war game guy.
A miniatures guy.
Right. So when you get this game, it's not like a lot of Speccy games you get. This thing has a big set of instructions in it, including a map, what they would call a leaflet, which is it's a rules on one side, all the turns, how everything works, the big maps in there. And then there's also some historical backing on top of everything else.
Scene setting.
Right. So it also will it tells you what led up to the point where you're going to be taking over the game and whatnot.
And that's incredibly important because
if you pirated this, you're boned. Yeah. This is one where you needed the inlay. You had to have it.
Well, you needed it not only to set the scene, but it is a... the information you need is not on the screen. They expect you to have some knowledge going on.
And also, I should mention that the various icons are also written out on the docs as well.
Yeah.
This is a game, I was thinking about this, when we used to have, a lot of Americans didn't grow up with cassettes as their computer. In fact,
we did. We did, but America skipped it.
So a lot of people can't understand what that's like to have cassettes. And we pirated. We never had one single bought cassette the entire time we had the
computer.
Not that
I can remember, no.
We didn't have the opportunity to buy them.
No.
And so we know what it's like to copy cassettes. And what it's like is you find some sucker with a bought cassette and yet with a dual cassette disc
and a boom box, yeah.
And so I'm assuming that it was as easy over in the UK to copy these things as it was for us. But it's funny, we come across a game every once in a while where you've got to have the manual, and this one here, you will not figure this out at all. Yeah. I had the manual and still staggered around like an idiot. So I can imagine without it.
When I first booted this up, because I like to, I think there is merit to a game that you can go in blind and be okay.
Yeah.
So I always try to do that if it's a game I've never heard of, and I've never heard of or played this before.
Yeah.
So I loaded this up, and I actually figured out the controls on my own.
Yeah.
Which
I do too.
If you've never played this, that's a bit of a... Did you play with a joystick or keyboard?
Keyboard.
Okay, I did as well.
Now the thing is though, when and we'll get to the menu, but when you, just because you can move the hand around the opening, it doesn't mean you know what's happening. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. What? Yeah. All I'm saying is I figured out the controls on my own.
Yeah.
But when it came to actually succeeding or playing the game in a meaningful fashion, I gave up. I got the manual, and even after reading the manual, and the manual, we don't normally talk about the manual in this kind of depth. For this game, it's really imperative. The manual is good, not great. I had a scan that had both sides. It had the map. It had all that information.
Yeah, I had everything.
It doesn't go deep into what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And when I read that the game design was from a board gamer, it clicked. Because this is so set up like a board game.
Yeah. In fact, the board game guy, Palmer, has there's a big long chunk of words that he writes about what he was doing. Here's what I'm attempting. I want a realistic simulation. He's like, here's what I want the AI to do. And here's how hard it's going to be. And here's how I know this was the reason I did it this way. So the guy had a lot. I mean, this guy basically designed the game like he would make a board game, and if depending on how you set up the time, it could be exactly like a board game. So, as we mentioned, the game comes up, and you see a series of pictures, icons.
Yeah, we ready to go into the game proper.
Yeah.
All right, let me take over here.
Okay.
I feel like I've got this. For folks that don't know, I'm an avid board gamer.
I played some board games.
No, I literally play a new board game at least once a week. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm an avid board gamer. And even though this is from the 80s, this reeks of miniature game. So if you think about that when you're going in, you actually have a way better concept of what's going on. Opening screen, before you even start the game, you can select keyboard or mouse. You can select how fast the game is going to go on a scale from 1 to 255. And that's literally how fast the clock down in the corner is going to proceed if on a normal basis. And that's important. We'll get into that. And then you can get information, which pre-game is just basically saying the skies look great.
We should, before you get deep into this, I just want to mention that what the game is. The game is you are controlling squadrons of the 10 and 11 group, which are, and you control them in the early days of August 1940 against computer-controlled German raids on the UK.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Just so you're wondering what he's talking about.
So, when you start the game, you have a pre-game session. And this is you setting up your defenses, setting up the board, basically. And it's not timed. It is literally you pick up resources from one place, tell them to go to the other place. What kind of resources? Your main resources in this game are your planes / pilots. Those are kind of clumped together. And your flat cannons. And this is where it really shows that it's a miniature game. Your flat cannons, in whatever location they are at, will automatically destroy as many enemies as there are flat cannons. There's no roll. There's no other stipulation. Flat cannon equals dead enemy. That's hugely important. And you can't just have one place that has all the flat cannons, because the AI swarms the UK. It attacks it from all sides. Well, from the south, the east, and the west.
Yeah.
So you set up pregame, and you're moving. At least what I did was I moved a lot of my flat cannons out of the heart of the UK, put it down more towards the shore, more towards the border. I moved my planes to boast kind of the coastal defense. Okay, so that's what you can do pregame. and then you start. And from the moment you hit go, the timer clicks.
Now, do you want to talk about setting the rate? Because that's sort of important.
Yeah, I already talked about that.
Well, I mean, when you set the rate, you can also set how long, like if you want to play for a day.
Well, there's
this
two
is sort of
modes.
important.
Yeah, there's two modes of play.
Yeah.
You can play a day campaign where you just literally it takes you through one day and then it tells you how well you did off that.
It's a quickie.
Or you can play the campaign, which just goes on until the end of September.
Or if you wipe out the enemy.
Or if the enemy, or if Churchill deems you a detriment to the effort and makes you retire.
Yeah.
So, how does the game actually play? It is a reaction-based game in the weirdest of sense. You have to see the Germans coming over and alert your pilots to get ready. And there's 3 states of readiness. They could either be in their cabin, in their barracks, but they know to be ready. They can be in their planes, just waiting to take off, or you can have them physically in the sky.
Yeah.
And these 3 states have 3 different outcomes on the game. If they're in their bunkers, they remain rested. But if there's a surprise attack, the planes are destroyed on the ground. If you have them in the planes, setting on the runway, if the enemy shows up, they'll automatically take off, so you won't lose planes on the ground, but it makes them tired. It fatigues the pilots. And if you have them in the air, obviously they can't be destroyed on the ground, but it fatigues the pilots and it uses fuel.
Right.
Now, fuel is not tracked as a resource. It just says after your people have flown around for X amount of time, they have to land and refuel.
Also, the fatigue, among other things, when your pilots go to the air, you set how aggressive they're going to be.
I'm going to get to that.
Well, I'm just mentioning it now. And so there's an aggression setting. You can make them like 0, like timid weenie boys, or 6, like murderous death machines. You want them on 6 all the time.
No, you don't.
Well, I mean, it helps you'll kill more guys on 6.
No.
But they get tired.
No, there's a reason why you don't do that.
I had them on 6.
It's a fatigue thing. It's an aggression thing. But also, it's if you say, I'm going to 6, max aggression every time, you are going to lose pilots. Unless the force coming after you has bombers. If the force invading your airspace has bombers, that's when you want to really crank up the aggression because you're trying to stop the bombers. If you're just getting buzzed by support planes or whatever, you can dial the aggression back and that stops the fatigue on your soldiers. So why is fatigue important? If the soldier is too fatigued, or I should say the more fatigued he is, he will perform worse in combat. So if you have a bunch of tired pilots up there, no good. You're not going to get anywhere. But if your pilots are well rested and have kills under their belt, the pilots get experience and will actually become better pilots. They'll level up, basically. And you want to keep those pilots well rested until bombers come to basically reserve, because if the bombers get through and destroy places, that's bad. You can repair them, but it takes a long time. Plus, it just looks bad for your reputation. It drops morale across the board. So how do you actually tell these people it's time to fight, it's time to rest, whatever you're going to do? 2 main ways. You could either do it per global, is what it's called in the game. That's when you're telling an entire region, like east side of the UK, you guys need to be in your planes and in the air. And the entire east side of the map will do that. Or you can target a base or a outpost or a port and tell that specific port you need to get in the air, or you need to rest, or you need to be in your planes on the runway.
It's a lot of fun to try to target those.
And And you do this by moving a little cursor around on the map and putting it on the icon, clicking on it, telling it what to do, and then you can use the S key in the middle of your, because this uses the Q, W, E, that section of keyboard as an 8-way way to move your cursor.
Yeah.
And then the S key in the middle,
unless you use joystick,
you can use to accelerate time.
Yeah.
Because the game is not go, 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 go until it is.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So during your periods of just waiting to see what happens, you can actually speed up time independent of whatever time you set at the beginning of the game.
By the way, just before you move on, just talking about the interface there a little bit. Have you ever begged for the use? I never thought I would bow down to the use of a mouse more than I did when I was playing this game. This game, especially in the part we're talking about where you're trying to target those individual ports, because there are like 9 big bases and 1 million little like ports around here, and you've got to go through and try to give individual orders. And you're sitting there on the keyboard, and you're trying to get there, and the Germans are coming. You're like, trying to get there, trying to hit the button. It's tough. It hasn't aged well.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So when you actually, because you don't always see the attack coming from Germany.
All right.
Sometimes it will just show up in the middle of your map. Over top the UK, and you're like, oh crap.
They're just there.
I didn't, I pulled all my flax out of that region. The people are on the ground. We're screwed. That place, just write it off. Churchill's going to yell at me. But normally, you'll see the dots representing the Germans flying over the channel coming at you. And you can kind of predict where they're going and get that base on high alert. A few things I would have liked to have seen differently is I wish these things had numbers beside them.
What you mean? Well, they are numbered on the inlet map, on the inlay map.
No. I mean, I want, when I have a set of soldiers or a set of planes like flying around my map doing patrols, I wish I knew how many planes were in that little squadron.
Well, I mean, they were pushing it with this map before. There's no way you're going to get that.
Because
there's a 0 chance.
Because it's really hard. It's like, okay, I got planes over there. Don't worry about it. Well, I haven't been keeping track. There's like 1 plane, and I'm sending them after the entire armada. It's like,
I did that many times.
Like, man, he got shot down in an instant. What the heck happened? Listen,
I know what you mean. Plus, I'm going to arrest the entire front. Just I know, oh crap, why did I do that? Slaughter. Like, it's easy to make a mistake, because if you don't pay close attention, you see a green background with a bunch of dots. And dots are moving, and messages are happening, and you're just like, what's going on? It can be very confusing unless you're dialed in.
And it becomes a bit of a twitchy game, because it is nice that you can zoom out, and you can see the whole lower part of the UK, and it shows very basic iconology on what's happening. Or you can zoom in on a section of map and get a much better idea of what's happening. What you're targeting, who's there to defend, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But the problem is, you see a plane coming, you've got to get your marker over there, your cursor, if you will, to the base you think it's going to, get them up. That's the game. That's the heart of the game, is don't tire your flyers out, your pilots out. Get them alert when they need to be alert. Have flat cannons where they're going to do the most damage. That's the whole game. And you have to keep doing that as the Germans keep progressing through the time. And if you do too badly, Churchill fires you.
Yeah, that's it.
Fires you. He says, listen.
I never heard him say one nice thing.
He just basically, and yeah, when you win, he's like, wow, congrats. Well, not win. Not win. But when you live to fight another day, he's like, listen, our East Front's getting destroyed, but you did the best you could. It's like,
yeah. This is one of those games, you're talking, remember when we played, I think it was on the Commodore PET, we played a board game that had been translated, Acquire. Remember when we did that?
Yes.
And it worked.
Yes.
That's a game that would translate well. This is a game where part of it, the part with the math, the part with the enemy movement that you don't want to control, that part works. But the rest of it would be better to play on your coffee table because it's hamstrung by the way you move stuff around, the controls and whatnot. Now, I will say this. I looked into this game extensively because I was interested in how it reviewed.
Yeah.
And I looked at the reviews on this, and the reviews were universal praise of the highest magnitude. Yeah. Like, everyone loved this game, and they all celebrated the interface. And so, what does this tell me? Well, it tells me that we are in 2023.
The times they are changing.
And so, it is hard for a modern, it's hard to modern man to go back to caveman times to use this interface. And normally, that doesn't bother me that much. But this is a game, when you're moving that map, guy, I was okay with whirling around the map or with the icons with the space bar and all that. I could get around. But when you're doing the finite work of trying to move that cursor around, and this is a game where you need to be snappy.
Yes.
You know, and listen, I'm not going to sit here and say I was a great expert. Brent was way, way better at it than I am.
And I sucked.
And I ham and egged it. And this is also not a game you just tackle in a 3 or 4 day span and just assume you're going to be great. This one, you can spend a long time just getting up to speed on the day one campaign. Yes. But in terms of an interface, it's aged badly because we know better and they didn't know better then. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's actually... I mean, in some ways, it's a brilliant piece of kit because, I mean, this is a real... Listen, we have just barely scratched the surface on the campaigns of this. You've got Night Rage. The game changes every time you play it, so it's not like it's going to be repeating. They change the amount of the Luftwaffe that come across. They change where they go. So we didn't get into the changing the time segments on this. You can make this game run as quickly or as slowly as you want, and I mean quick, brother. If you want to be a genius type, you can make the game run fast, but it's going to be so fast. I don't know how you could physically use the controls to like a 30. They mentioned in the manual that a 30 would be like expert level speed, like a real genius.
Yeah.
If you can manipulate the controls of this game at that level, you're a heck better man than me because I tried it one time to see what would happen. Yeah. I was just like, bah!
Yeah.
You know. But this game was highly praised. The people in Crash gave this a 96%. Sinclair used to give it a 5 out of 5. Your Sinclair gave it a 9 out of 10. And the people in 86, the Crash readers, nominated this as the 4th best strategy game of the year. It had a direct opponent in this field. I think it was called the Battle of Britain.
Yes.
And this game... from what I heard, with the exception, apparently Battle of Britain has some sort of arcade element. We haven't played that one, but this game sounded like it bested it in almost every other category. This was sort of the King Dong of war games, at least at that era. And it's not one I looked around to see if I could find something about how well it was selling today, how many are available. I found one copy that had been sold on eBay for like $8. So if you've got this and you want to hold on to it, probably I'd say a lot of people that would have bought this game probably held on to it because this is one you're not going to want to just like dupe it and go because you're going to have that cassette inlay to play the game.
It does help. Yeah, my opinion on this game, from a board gaming mindset, I see a lot of what they were trying to do. And I think they do a lot of what they were trying to do fairly well. The issue is, like I said before, the iconology for what is a base, what is a port, what is a barracks, that sort of stuff is fine. But when it doesn't give you numbers, and it doesn't give you numbers anywhere, you have to kind of keep some of that stuff in your head. That, in my opinion, that hurts the game. That makes it so my strategies are limited to what I can remember. And even per the manual, this is meant to be played over many weeks. It suggests you play one day, you save the game, because it boasts endlessly in the manual about how you can save your game. But I know why, because when you're playing miniature games in real life, that's one of the biggest drawbacks is you have to just leave the table sometimes, and if it gets bumped or someone just cleans it up or it's somewhere set up where you can't leave it, that sucks because it's hard to get a full miniature game done in one day.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got this kind of scale.
Man, did you ever play those war games where you have like you would have the table set up for like a month?
No.
Oh man.
No, because
I can't remember that far between games. I've done that a couple times and it didn't go well for me.
And that's one of the things that this is praised for is you play for a day and then you save it and you can come back and isn't that awesome? So I know I get what they're going for. I think they did a fine job pulling it off. Is this a fun game for me to play? I'm not going to come back to it. That's not saying it's a bad game. That's not saying it's an unplayable mess. I'm not saying anything like that. If I'm going to play a war strategy game, this is not what I'm looking for.
A modern equivalent of this would probably be fine if they, but you know what I mean. But then again, it's not. I understand.
It's logistics.
You're right.
If logistics is fun for you, then you're going to love this.
It's a game of its era, but the era for me, this is one I can't come back to. I agree.
But again, I can't stress this enough. I'm not saying it's a bad game.
Yeah.
And I think it does most of what it does really well. Also, the AI on this is top tier. You do not get attacked the same way each time. And even the planes available to the Germans are not the same every single time. Now, they're not tweaked a ton, but they are. It tells you how many planes that the Germans have at the very beginning of the game, and then never again.
Yeah.
Never again. So you can actually track all that crap if that's your thing. And for the people who like that sort of stuff, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And people who don't like that kind of stuff, don't even bother. Don't even load it up. There's absolutely nothing here for you.
Yeah. It's surprisingly thorough and detailed for a game on a 48K Speccy. Just a couple words of warning on this. I have heard that there's a bug in this that will screw up your saves.
Oh,
so that's something I've read that in a bunch of different reviews. So
harsh.
If you're a person that's still playing this and saving the tape in 2023 as we record this, then you may want to be careful. Also, just be careful that your tapes are several decades old.
And magnetic media.
To also drive the point home that this game is what I would call not a pick up and play game.
It's not.
We didn't have anything coming close to a review on the Discord. I mean, no, we had a couple people that had a look and gave it a whirl. I can tell you when I loaded this up and found out what it was, and I just stared blankly at the screen in a vain attempt to understand.
Yeah.
So it is not one that's going to light your world on fire visually. Although I will say we also have mentioned this. The digitized pictures of Winston Churchill are top shelf.
Oh yeah,
amongst the best I've seen on the Speccy. They did a great job with the art. I mean, hey, listen, if you're going to make a cool art thing in a game like this, Winston Churchill's the guy. But the rest of it, and it's funny because it's icon based. There's tons and tons of English text in here. So one would wonder why they didn't just kind of it wouldn't have hurt to have had a little label under those icons. I don't know why they did it that way. But they did release the Spanish version, so maybe this was strictly done as we often see in European games for they had planned on putting this out in a bunch of different markets.
Possible.
Who knows?
It's always possible. Well, I mean, board games try to stay iconic just for that reason.
I hate that. So there you go. There you go, Brent.
Any other thoughts, Aaron, before we leave our finest hour?
Listen, I salute the brave men who climbed in those kites back in the day.
Oh, heck yeah.
And fought valiantly. And if you are interested in the actual battles that this game consists of, the actual invasion, there are plenty. There's a library full of books on it. If you're someone who hasn't really gotten into the history of World War II, perhaps, I'm sure most people in the UK are quite well educated in this, but if you're not, I urge you to seek it out from both sides. It's an interesting... It's an interesting battle. What was done and what wasn't done, and there's plenty of space here for many games based on it. That's for sure.
Listen, we are in a unique situation in the world's history where we can actually look back at these sort of conflicts, like you said, from both sides to understand what both sides were thinking. I mean, never in in the history of the world has that been the case before now? And you can get a pretty good understanding. It's amazing the history that you can pull out of these conflicts, and not just World War II, but tons of other ones you never hear about.
Yeah. It's funny, World War II.
Go learn something, kids.
World War II is a unique, listen, horrible. Don't get me wrong. But it's funny to think that, like, it's not funny, but it's interesting to think that this was going on. Our granddad was knee-deep in the hoopla and getting captured at the Battle of the Bulge near the end of the war. And then there's also all the campaigns going on in Asian and all the campaigns going in North Africa. I mean, this was a world war.
Yeah.
I will say, without the wars, if there's any good thing to come out of the war, then we've got a lot of excellent games. So there you go.
So, Aaron, let's talk a little bit about what's happening next week. Well,
we'll talk about 2 weeks for for several weeks for our Sinclair. The next game we're going to be tackling, it's another one I've never heard of, but the game selection committee has spoken. And the next game we'll be taking on is something called Worst Things Happen at Sea. Worst Things Happen at Sea. Apparently, it's a arcade action game. And it was the big...
I heard that one before.
It was the big winner by the game selection committee. I mean, it wasn't even close this time around. So that's what we'll be tackling on the next R. Sinclair.
Yeah.
Now, next week, at this exact same time, we'll be back in the chair for ARG Presents. Brent, tell them what we're going to be getting into next week on ARG.
Next week, we spun the Retro Rewind, and we are going to go head back to the Commodore PET.
Yeah.
For the third episode on the PET. This should be a good one. I figure after this, the Commodore PET Retro Rewind piece will be retired for quite some time. So if the PET is of any interest to you, check it out, because we're not going to be coming back away this for a long time.
I will say the PET, we've had some good luck on the PET.
Absolutely, have had awesome luck with the PET.
I don't think we've had it done yet.
No, every time we pick it up, it's a great show.
And then, of course, the good thing is after the Thanks for Giving Marathon, we'll put a bunch of new pie pieces out. We've got a ton of suggestions. So that's when we restock the wheel fully with brand new ideas. So the coming year is going to be wide open to Brent. Should be a lot of fun.
Any parting thoughts, Aaron? Any wayward imaginations before we call this one a good?
Listen, if you listen to this show and you have any interest in this game, despite the fact that it's intimidating, I urge you to just give it a shot. You may find it interesting if this is your bag.
Yeah, if you like logistics, this is certainly your way to go.
I hate them.
Wave goodbye to the good people, Aaron.
Hey, until next time, Brent, rewind tape.
And press play.
Our Sinclair is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/OurSinclair if you'd like to support the show and join our community.